September 11, 2001, the day my life was forever altered. It was a beautiful Tuesday morning without a cloud in the sight. Primary election day in New York City, and I arrived at my office nice and early. You see, I worked at 2 World Trade Center on the 73rd floor. In the securities industry, an office would be full as early as 8 a.m. At 8:46, a plane hit Tower 1, and I was in Tower 2. The lights flickered off and on, and the building began to sway back and forth. It felt like hours, but just a few minutes had passed. I walked over to my partner's office, and I looked out the window, and I saw burning paper flying around. And while I had originally intended to stay in the building, I knew that we needed to get out. And so I began to go toward the stairways and start the long trek down from the 73rd floor. And while we were walking down the stairs, news had traveled saying that a small plane had hit Tower 1. We thought it was a CNN or MSNBC plane. At the same time, there were announcements going over the PA system. Tower 2 is secure, Tower 2 is secure. You don't have to evacuate the building, Tower 2 is secure. I found comfort in that announcement, so much so that I actually got on the elevator to go to the 44th floor so I could make my way back upstairs. You see, the 44th floor was a common walkway area. You were either able to go all the way up or down to the ground level. I get on the elevator and I felt compelled to get off before the doors were able to close. I step off, the doors closed, and not even 30 seconds later, Tower 2 was hit. The building that I was still in. This plane was lower and hit at an angle so much that it hit the 77th floor. The elevators came crashing down and fire exploded out of the doors, but the door that I was standing in front of did not open. There were people alongside of me burning. It felt like forever, but I'm sure I lost a track of time. I saw an exit, hurried over there and began to walk down from the 44th floor, down into the lower levels, right above the trains. I walked past where you have the Disney store and the Strawberries and the Brooks Brothers. I came up the escalator at 5 World Trade Center near the Krispy Kreme and the bookstore. I remember as I was walking out the doors and down the block, feeling as if I could become Lot's wife. Don't look back lest you shall surely die. I finally get to Broadway and then I turn around. And I saw this plane hanging out of the building that I had just come out of. It was so surreal. There were people above the plane who I knew were destined to die. What in the world was going on? I began to walk toward Battery Park City because the phone lines weren't working, and I knew at this time my family would be worried. Fortunately, I had walked far enough away that when the clock struck 9:58 a.m., Tower 2, that building that I worked at, it collapsed. And if I had remained on Broadway, I would have been crushed by the bricks and the debris. I was covered in dust. Everyone was painted gray. At the same time, that clear blue sky in the downtown area, it went pitch black. Imagine that. And just as the sky began to clear, Tower 1 lurched us right back into darkness. I was so fortunate that when I walked to Battery Park City, it's a very wealthy community. That community had an evacuation plan in place. I was given a choice to catch a boat. I could go to Staten Island, New York, or to Jersey City, New Jersey. I grew up in Jersey City. It was at that time, during that transit from New York to New Jersey, I realized that the wealthy had a plan for unexpected tragedies, and most people that I knew were ill-equipped. Their plan allowed me to get home later that day while others that I knew were stuck in New York with no way to get to their loved ones. When I got home, the news coverage was on a continual 24 hours. It was around the third day as the death toll continued to rise. I fell to my knees thinking, what if? What if I hadn't survived? What if I didn't make it home? Where would my family be? How would they survive? Did I have a plan in place to ensure that they would be taken care of no matter what? I mean, I was living the American dream. I was a wife and a mother. I had 2 children. I had the house, the white picket fence. I had the dog, and I was earning 6 figures comfortably at the tender age of 30. But the reason why I was dealing with what if is because I saw the media narrative excluding me and my experience from the conversation. This was quickly becoming about the wealth of America being attacked. They were dealing with the World Trade Center being the financial mecca of the world. And here it is, I'm saying, well, what about me? It made me feel as if my life didn't matter. I didn't die, and I didn't suffer what they called a visible scar. I mean, I was a survivor, and I needed to be grateful that I was still alive. And at the same time, when I began to seek out help, I didn't encounter the empathy and the compassion that others were receiving. My dignity was shattered. And that's when I decided to serve. I was experiencing something that was not defined in that moment. I later found out it was called survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt is a response to an event in which someone else experienced loss, but you did not. And while the name implies this is to be in response to the loss of life, it could also be the loss of property, of health, identity, or a number of other things that are important to people. Now, I confess, I don't completely agree with the definition of survivor's guilt because I experienced a loss. It just was not visible initially. But as the days passed, I lost my income. It decreased significantly. My breathing was affected. I could not sleep at night. And speaking about the loss of dignity, I was offended that it appeared to impact more marginalized people. I mean, America poured out love, support, and resources. But those things did not necessarily make it to affected people like me. I felt guilty for living, yet I could not change history. I had to do something. And I refused to merely exist in this world without impacting another life in some meaningful, substantive way. So exactly what did I have to offer? I had my vocational expertise, and I had my experience to share. I began my service teaching economic justice and financial literacy. Where, you might ask? I went to the church, in the schools, and in the prison. I needed people to know how important it was to have a plan in place when the unknown, the unexpected, the devastating tragedies happen. See, it's too late to plan when the trauma is upon you. It's too late to plan for a job loss after you lose your job. It's too late to plan for the unexpected illness after the diagnosis. It's too late to plan for death after someone dies. I wanted to bring information to marginalized and oppressed communities. I wanted to make certain that these communities understood that it is easier to recover emotionally, spiritually, and economically after enduring a catastrophic or traumatic event if you have a blueprint to operate from. You will hear during your journey in life that we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors who paved the way for us. So what are you adding to the world? To find your place of service, I invite you to explore these several areas. Number one, what are you passionate about? What area in this world do you see can be improved and you have that idea or that thought that you believe can add value? What is stopping you from implementing your idea? This is an area that you can serve. Number two, has injustice knocked on your front door? Did you have to overcome obstacles and pitfalls because you were being treated unfairly? And that treatment scarred you in such a way that you wouldn't want that pain on your worst enemy. This too is an area that you might be called to serve. Number 3, one more consideration. Just look around. Look at the social landscape around you. Think about your gifts, your skill sets, your areas of experience, and even expertise. Is there a cause or a place where you can add value? This too is an area where you can serve. Simply put, to serve is to help or to aid or to contribute to someone else. Serving is not about you. Dr. Benjamin Mays, who is or who was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor, said this: every man and woman is born into the world to do something unique and something distinctive. And if he or she does not do it, it will never be done. What I've learned since 9/11 is that life is uncertain. We will have experiences and challenges that have the potential to impact us detrimentally if we do not have a strategic plan in our lives. You see, my what if moment was national. However, you may identify with the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the shifting of family dynamics, and anything else that might be perceived as unexpected and extremely impactful. In my quest to serve, I ask people to consider this thought. If money were not an issue, what would you be doing with your life? This is where service enters the equation. My life charge is to challenge others to serve. Any opportunity to help others create a strategic plan for their life, that's where I'm committed. It shows up when people need emotional support or spiritual direction and financial guidance. That is who I am and what I'm created to do. Today, I invite you to consider the words of Dr. Mays. What will be left undone if you don't do it? I challenge you to serve.